Hello, everyone. Welcome in to episode 203 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports here on the third Friday in October, which that means we're one day from one of the biggest days of our sports year. I'm Nick Love, as always, from Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. Joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gus Tomazelli. Gus, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Normally we don't do Fridays, but that's where we made it work. And it's so funny that during October, even on a Friday night, we have college football and baseball with huge implications in terms like one for a spot in the World Series and the other one for potentially college football playoffs.
Oh, 100%. And of course, I've got the quad box here right now. I've got Nebraska at Minnesota. Of course, huge game, especially for the Cornhuskers, who are ranked again. You got Louisville and Miami right now. Louisville up 14-7. So could the Hurricanes be on upset alert? And as you mentioned, we got the ALCS going on right now between the Toronto Blue Jays and Seattle Mariners. That's a 2-2 series. Blue Jays are up 2-1 in that game. I believe we're heading to the 7th. And I have warm-ups on right now for the Brewers and the Dodgers. The Dodgers looking to complete a sweep tonight against the Milwaukee Brewers to punch their ticket to, I believe, was it their second straight World Series? Of course, they're trying to go back-to-back after winning the championship last season. And let's start with the MLB playoffs. I'm going to guess we can start with those with those Dodgers, who have just dominated this NLCS so far, up 3-0, and it's just. It felt like for the season, right? Like the Dodgers were human. It felt like they were vulnerable, but they have definitely turned it on here in the postseason.
Especially because they were swept by those same Milwaukee Brewers in the regular season. So when you come to a championship series facing a team you couldn't defeat in the regular season, you tend to think it's going to be an even series. I don't think there's gonna be a sweep. I think it's gonna be a gentleman's sweep. But still, though, I thought Milwaukee's gonna give a way harder time than they're doing it.
Yeah, it just to an extent it feels a little disheartening because and granted, it's not like these have been blowouts, right? Like game 1 was 2-1. The Dodgers won 5-1 in game 2, and then last night was 3-1. So, the Dodgers pitching has just been absolutely phenomenal throughout the series. They line up 3 runs, and it's just like, the Brewers obviously have played very disciplined ball throughout the year. And it just didn't show up here in this series, at least not so far, because the Dodgers just have so much talent, especially in their pitching staff. And it goes to show that, there's just such a big difference between October baseball and the rest of the season. And experience and talent matter so much this time of the year.
And it's so funny that for practically 10 years, about that. The Dodgers felt like a really good regular season team, but always fell apart come October. And now it's the opposite. Like they didn't have, again, they won the division, but they all had an outstanding regular season. But they're just, on top of it in the postseason.
Yeah, and that's where it matters. That's where, if you're LA and you're spending all this money, you're spending the equivalent of a GDP of a small country on your baseball roster. Yeah, you should be competing for championships. You should be winning championships, winning pennants. And, that's what they're doing. And right now, to me, they've got to be the prohibitive favorites to go back-to-back. Considering what they're doing. I don't see the Brewers pulling off a 2004 Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, I guess they're gonna have to do that, because they're gonna have to win it all, and it's all about momentum. But yeah. I don't see like a big swing of momentum like that 04 ALCS, and Miami is gonna be on the 7-yard line.
Yeah,
what a run!
Green there. I believe that was Tony.
Yeah, Tony.
Yeah, the wide receiver there. He's had an amazing freshman year so far for the Hurricanes. One of Carson Beck's emergent targets down there for the Hurricanes as they try to tie up the game there against Louisville. But yeah, I think it's pretty obvious to us that the Dodgers are going to win this series. And yeah, for the Dodgers, when we look at this series right between Toronto and Seattle, like who do we think between these two teams presents the biggest challenge? Who should the Dodgers not want to win the series?
Ooh, that's a great question because I feel like Toronto is building up for a moment like that, and the Mariners have all that momentum. 24 years without making it to not even a championship series, but a division series, playoffs. So I feel like for the Dodgers facing the Mariners would be better because then all the pressure's on them to win finally. That can they make it instead of the Blue Jays that have won before, and I feel like build that roster over time to make to a moment like that.
Right, and also too the Mariners. I don't know if you have that game on. I guess they just had a guy on first and second at the bottom of the sixth, and then the Blue Jays are able to get out of the jam. So huge missed opportunity there. I mean, those like runners left on scoring position. Those are killers in these type of games. So that's a huge moment there for Toronto if they ultimately win this game. And it feels like obviously Seattle went up to Toronto and dominated them, punked them in Canada. But you got to give Toronto credit. They've come back and they're 3 innings away from sweeping Seattle in Seattle and turning the game. It's been wild to watch the road team in the ALCS dominate so far. You don't normally see that.
And the last time something like that happened was the 2019 World Series. Remember, Washington won 4-3, but all 4 wins came in Houston.
I mean, I guess there is something to be said that it could be that being at home there's more stress. And baseball is a little bit different, right? Because the home crowd can't really affect you the same way as they can like in college football or college basketball, right? Like there's no Neyland Stadium in the Major League Baseball,
Yeah, and you have all that envy from like Mariners fans that they haven't been in that spot for that long that can affect on the field.
Yeah, that they're showing Shohei Ohtani warming up. He must be starting tonight. Which obviously, one of the biggest names in the sport there. Starting is pretty big. But yeah, it's gonna be fascinating because it seems like, as you said, that there's more pressure, I think, on the Mariners, especially being at home, being up 2-0 in the series. I think that clearly you can tell it's starting to get to them a little bit in this series. And I think also because of this, I think Toronto's ultimately going to win this thing, either in 6 or 7.
I think Seattle's going to come back and win.
I really hope so, because I would like to see Seattle win because of obviously how they have struggled over the years. But, it may not be meant to be for them.
Yeah, but I think if they come back and win tonight, I can see them like upsetting Toronto in Canada and, going to the World Series.
Absolutely. And then if Toronto wins, right, you got the Toronto. Let's just imagine the Blue Jays versus the Dodgers, especially with everything that's happened between Canada and the U.S. this year. I almost feel like there would be some pressure on Toronto because I think a lot of Canadians would, rally around the Blue Jays as we're going up against a U.S. team. It's kind of like back when the Four Nations Cup, the Canada versus the U.S. in that deal. Like,
yeah. And it's so funny that the Blue Jays kind of can revenge even Toronto's hockey team, because how many times the Maple Leafs get defeated by an American team, and Toronto fans are passionate. We saw how they carry the Raptors in the 2019 NBA title, so they can be an extra like like a special push for the Blue Jays in this playoffs.
It's really interesting that that's really the only one they've had, at least in the 21st century. I know they won back-to-back in the 90s. Because it's the iconic Drake diss track to Meek Mill with the cover of the Blue Jays beating the Phillies in, I believe, 93, 92, one of those years. But
92, I believe.
yeah, and I believe they went on a walk-off. So definitely Toronto trying to get back to that. And it looks like George Springer just got hit by a pitch. So he is writhing around in the batter's box in pain. I wonder if they're going to show a replay of this. Wu is the pitcher here, so see what happened. And his Wu's pitch hit him right in the kneecap.
Oh,
yeah. So George Springer.
Ow! Oh, yeah. That hurt on me. Like this show, I guess right now you can see that too on the umpire camera. Oh boy.
Yeah.
That gotta hurt.
Yeah, that hurts a lot. And that's if you're Toronto too, you don't want to lose that guy. That's a guy that has played in a lot of October baseball back when he was on the Houston Astros and now in Toronto.
And Miami settled for a field goal. They're down by 10 by the end of the
down by 4. They're down 14.
Yeah, down by 4 with 1:56 left in the second quarter in Hard Rock Stadium.
God, that'd be such. I'll say this would be such a Mario Cristobal.
Oh.
And
Friday night game, unranked team.
And look at that, number 2 team in the country, and you can see some empty seats.
Yes.
I mean, it's just absolutely absurd to me that we literally are talking about one of the best teams here in college football, but because your stadium is not on campus, there are empty seats. There has not been any empty seats for Neyland Stadium games this year.
Yeah, if Tennessee was the number 2 team in the country, I'll bet all those 100,000 plus seats will be filled.
I mean, we're number 11 right now, and so obviously we're not too shabby ourselves, but obviously we'll be talking a lot more about the Vols here in just a little bit. But I guess as we transition to college football right now, obviously a developing storyline there in Louisville, Miami. Of course, Louisville trying to score before the half. I'll say this is it kind of surprising to me. I mean, it shouldn't be surprising given that Mario Cristobal has a track record. But I really honestly thought that Miami's lines, like especially the defensive and offensive line, especially with guys like Ruben Bain on a defensive line and Francis Mwaga on the offensive line, would dominate Louisville here in this game. And particularly with, I don't think Miller Moss has played very well this year at quarterback. He frankly lost in the game against Virginia a couple of weeks ago. I didn't particularly think that Louisville was in a great position here to win this game, and I know it's a long way to go, but clearly for Louisville, they're able to overcome that so far. And Jeff Brom, give him credit, calling a good game so far, and there's the Mario Cristobal factor, where he's going to have to prove to all of us he can actually not lose the game.
Yeah. And tonight's scenario, because how many times on a Friday night game, unranked team, Miami lost to themselves?
Yeah, we have seen it on multiple occasions. And that's what we got to say this. The ACC is just self-sabotaging themselves with these Friday night games at this point. We saw how that's killed Florida State's season. Ever since they went on the road to Virginia, they have lost 3 straight in a row. And it's just man, the ACC makes it hard on their teams as any conference in the country.
I guess they kind of want to push for a Friday game to be for example, Miami then have more spotlight, don't have to compete with the SEC and Big Ten big games, but that can cause like a disadvantage in terms of recovery. And as you point out, for example, that was it for Florida State and Miami. As of right now, they're down by 4, and it looks like they're gonna be kind of running they're gonna have a tough time tonight.
Yeah, and speaking of their rivals, Florida State, while they're on the topic, I mean, it's insane, right? They come out, they beat Alabama week 1. Everyone thinks that Mike Norvell has fixed Florida State, and now the wheels have come off the bus again for Florida State. And this is kind of what I thought preseason about them. With 40 transfers, I just find it difficult that you're going to be able to bring in a team and build a team that's just going to be immediately great. And looking back on it, like that Alabama game makes zero sense now because Bama has been basically flawless since that game. And Florida State has looked nothing close to what they were that day. And maybe you just have to give Florida State credit for maybe not showing what they were going to be heading into that game. You got to maybe blame DeBoer for not being prepared for whatever that game was. And clearly, whatever happened that day, it has propelled Alabama to being much better. But for Florida State, I think this has just got to be a very disheartening because you got a false sense of hope with that Alabama win. And now you can't win a single ACC game to save your life.
Yeah, because after beating a team that took you away, took the chance of you going to the college football playoffs, it felt like Florida State was on the track of at least, I wouldn't say, they're going to make the college football playoffs, but, at least competitive, be on the top 15, at least maybe sneak in on a 12 seed, but now they're completely fell apart.
Yeah, you just wonder for Florida State, how many more chances do you give Mike Norvell, right? Because if things really go south, this could be his 4th losing season in 6 years at Florida State.
And then we'll see that 13-1 season as more like a fluke than something they kept on top.
Yeah, like if you look at Florida State and Florida both, they seem, it feels like both programs have been okay with mediocrity, right? Like look at Florida, they haven't pulled the trigger yet on Billy Napier. Like he's still there. Now there's rumors that his time is running short in Gainesville, but they kept him last year after 7-5, and they're at best Florida's probably going to be 7-5 again at best, but they're already 2-4, so probably going to lose more than 5 games this season. It's interesting to look at just how Florida and Florida State, who were once powerhouses in college football, just kind of okay meandering, okay not being great. And I think that's especially considering the next team we're going to talk about, it's fascinating that they're sitting around doing nothing.
And now Florida, like as you mentioned the topic, they're going to face Mississippi State. So that's probably the easiest game they have on their schedule until the end. Because even Kentucky's on the road and, Florida State's a rivalry game, so it has a little more difficulty. But the Mississippi State has not won in the SEC so far, even though they have a 4-2 record. But if they lose to Mississippi State, then there's no more. We'll see. I think, because Texas gave a lifeline to Billy Napier, but how short of a lifeline that can last?
Right, and of course they obviously get Tennessee and Florida, and I'm probably going to pick Florida to win just because I'm going to have to see us win in Gainesville before I believe it. But I mean, outside of just historical precedents, right? I mean, there's nothing that would make me think Florida would beat Tennessee this year. Like, if you took away the logo from Florida, I would say we would win that game. But, I mean, I just got to be honest here and be like, I got to see us win that game. I got to see us win in Gainesville at Dunhill Griffin Stadium in the Swamp before I feel comfortable picking us. Because, like 2 years ago, I felt incredibly confident that we were going to walk in there and win that game. And we got blown out. So, and that's just where I am with Florida. And because Florida does have a good defense. Florida does have a good defense. It's just their offense has been not good this year. So that's kind of where they're at. And I would be shocked if Florida keeps Napier. Now, granted, the Florida fans, a lot of them want Lane Kiffin. But, at this point, I don't know if Lane Kiffin would want to leave to go to Florida from Ole Miss. I think he's got a really good thing going in Oxford. And also that Miami game is going to half now. 14-10 Louisville up at the break.
Yeah, I mean, what is the biggest catch for Lane Kiffin to just change from one SEC program to another SEC program? I don't see but he's moving to a more prestigious program. But more prestige means more pressure. Right? I think he has a good, as you point out, a good thing going in Oxford.
And I'll say this, obviously, I know it's a Tennessee guy. I'm obligated to not like Lane Kiffin. But I do think he has matured a lot over the years. And I think he realizes that to an extent, leaving Tennessee for USC in the way he did was a mistake. And, in retrospect, I can't blame him for that because that was his dream job, was to coach at USC. Like, I recognize that if I were the head coach at USC and Tennessee asked me to come to be the head coach, I would do it because Tennessee is my school and USC was his school. I get that. I understand that. 15 years after the fact as an adult, I get that. My 12-year-old self wouldn't understand that, but my 27-year-old will. But I think now, obviously, he doesn't have that same attachment to Florida that he did to USC. And I think for Kiffin, I think Ole Miss is perfect for him.
Yeah.
Like, as you said, it's just he's quirky because he's kind of like a more Californian sun-dried Mike Leach at this point. He's become, since we lost Mike, Lane Kiffin has assumed the role of being like the most outspoken coach in college football. Either him or Cincinnati.
No, I won't say outspoken. I think he's the most character, more quirky, more provocative, but in a very silly way since Mike Leach.
Yeah, and of course, I don't think he's particularly as smart as Mike Leach was, because I think Mike Leach was legitimately a genius. I mean, Mike Leach, I think, could have gone into a variety of areas and have been very, very successful. Like I think we missed an opportunity of Mike Leach being like a politician. Could you imagine him like being in Congress or being in political office? Like Mike Leach would have been amazing at that.
I think he would have been outshine, or maybe he would just get kind of like lost in all the in and outs of politics.
And at the end of the day, like I'm pretty sure he was happiest in football, so and that's why he did football. But I mean, all I'm saying is like guys like him, Saban, like they have the intellect and the ability to do a lot of different things. And I'm not saying Kiffin couldn't be successful in a lot of other things either, especially after I think working with Saban, because I think working with Saban changed Kiffin.
Oh, 100%. The Nick Saban rehabilitation, Nick Saban coaching rehabilitation clinic.
Yeah, no one has benefited more from that from Lane Kiffin, because you got to remember, like Kirby Smart and Dan Lannon don't count just because they weren't head coaches before. They kind of came up through Nick Saban, and they've been like his best disciples out into the college football world. But definitely, Kiffin has been the best one of that rehabilitation clinic. But I don't think Florida's going to get him. Now, would they go after a certain guy that just got fired last week from Happy Valley, Pennsylvania? I can't believe we're talking about this, guys. James Franklin no longer the head coach at Penn State, was fired after the loss, a 22-21 loss at Penn State. I remember I was at a wedding last weekend, and this score, somebody told me that Penn State was losing, and I'm just like, you can't be serious. You cannot be serious. They're not losing again to the other worst team in the Big Ten. Because it was one thing for them to lose to UCLA on the road. They're not losing Northwestern at home. And then they showed me the phone. It's 22-21 Northwestern. And I'm like, oh my goodness. That is catastrophic. And it turns out it was not more than catastrophic, it was fatal. I've never seen a coaching regime just die. But that's what happened.
And so fast. Like literally 3 weeks ago, he was a top 10 team, home game, facing another top 10 team, going to overtime. Like, can you imagine what's going through his head? Like, if he would have beat Oregon, he would have probably still have his job even if he lost to UCLA and Northwestern. But I think he would have won those 2 games as well, because in football, momentum is really goes like this. It can change it from bad to good and good to bad really fast.
I mean, it reminds me, remember, and obviously these were 2 different type of games. In 2017, when the Vols lost in overtime not overtime, but on that Hail Mary to Florida.
Oh yeah, that was done.
Yeah, at that point, you just knew Butch Jones was on borrowed time. And you were wondering if the Vols had still any life with them, with all the coaching mistakes in that game. Then we came out 2 weeks later and lost 41-0 to Georgia. And that's pretty much what's happened here to Penn State. With all the talent that they have, all the guys they were convinced to brought back, losing to the 2 worst teams in the Big Ten is certainly a choice. And what makes no sense here is how the defenses looked bad. How Drew Allar, Drew Allar is not an NFL prospect. I'm sorry, you cannot convince me that Drew Allar is an NFL prospect. I've expressed my doubts about him since last year, and as we've seen, he cannot carry a team. He just can't. These receivers that they brought in, as good as I thought they were, like a Trevor Pena, I was very high on leaving Syracuse, but I guess Kyle McCord made him look good because Drew Allar is not. And for James Franklin, it feels like they were so obsessed trying to catch Ohio State and Michigan that they ended up, when you look at the OC and Kolnecki, who runs like an Iowa-style offense that's just unimaginative and boring, and they don't know how to use the 2 talented running backs they have in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. And then you look at the defense with Jim Knowles, who was just at Ohio State. But, you look at Ohio State this year, their defense is better with Matt Patricia. When that's the thing, Ohio State's defense played well in the playoffs last year. Well, you got to remember, they got boat raced by Oregon last year, 32 points. And multiple cases under Jim Knowles, they gave up 30-plus points. Yeah, looking at some Ohio State fans' commentaries on this, and they were like, yeah, we didn't really love Jim Knowles like that. So, and the thing about Jim Knowles is when Ohio State had those bad games, usually Ryan Day's offense was there to save the day. And Ryan Day was not here to save the day for James Franklin. And it just, and I'll say this, I think James Franklin is a great coach. I really do. You don't do what he did at Vanderbilt, and you don't do what he has done. He's been 42-8 this decade. He's been fantastic. And I get that a lot of those losses were against Ohio State, against the best teams they played, but a lot of teams would kill for consistency against everyone else. That's kind of like where Tennessee's at, right? We have reached consistency against worse teams.
But I think, Nick, at the end of the day, he was fired for something we talk for so much in this podcast, is that as much consistency is important, you have to, in big programs like that, Penn State, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Alabama. It's one thing to rebuild, and then because he inherited almost a mess. If I'm not mistaken, he was one of the coaches that came after the Sandusky scandal. The Paterno mess. Get fired and everything. But at the end of the day, Penn State fans always waited for that big win. I mean, in 2016, it happened. I remember they beat the number 2 Ohio State, and I believe that was the only win of a top 10 team during James Franklin tenure.
Right.
So that goes to show how much of a disappointment, big game after big loss after big loss. Especially if he would have made it the college football national championship last year, even if they would have lost to Ohio State at the end of the day, probably they would excuse. But Penn State fans know that those 2 games before the loss to Notre Dame, they were college football playoff games, but not with big opponents.
Right. I mean, obviously SMU, Boise State, they were it was a gifted path to the semifinals, right? Like anyone semifinals. Like Tennessee had to go play the hardest team. But Tennessee would have made in a reseeded bracket, Tennessee would have played SMU and would have won. I mean, that's just how that would have gone. But you do have to wonder, can Penn State find someone better? And I'll say this, this isn't going to fix this season. Like Penn State is in for a rough rest of the season. Like they still got to go. They got to go to Iowa, and this weekend, I think Iowa's going to beat them because this is a team that's in complete disarray, and that offense is so bad. Like they're not scoring on Iowa. Like Iowa just beat Wisconsin 37-0. Like Iowa actually scored 37 points in the game, which then might have to say more about Wisconsin than Iowa. Which maybe that's another program when you're talking about is Wisconsin, because oh my gosh. I mean, they're down the tubes, but Penn State's going to go to Ohio State, and that's going to be a destruction. They got to host Indiana, and we saw what they just did. I mean, Penn State's not making a bowl game this year, probably, after being preseason number 2. I mean, it's one of the most inexplicable collapses and failures we've ever seen. It's like they decided that the Oregon game was going to be their season. And when they lost that game, the players signed off and quit. And that's on James Franklin because,
Yeah, that's a great point, Nick. I feel like, the Oregon game was like a do or die. Like, you win and survive or lose and give up, because that's how it feels when you lose to UCLA that couldn't beat anybody. Then you lose to also Northwestern. They're in the bottom in the Big 12, in the Big 10. So, I mean, of course, I think the number one coach, because you ask who they're going to go after now, is definitely going to be Indiana Hoosiers coach Cignetti.
But if you're Cignetti, do you leave Indiana? Because let's bring them into discussion, because Indiana, what they did to Oregon was stunning. Like I did not expect. I could have seen this be a close game heading in there, and I had a feeling that Indiana was better this year. After what they did to Illinois a few weeks ago, I'm like, you just don't put up 63 points on the 9th ranked team in the country if you're not good. If you're not really good. And I'm like, this team could be better, but let's see what they do against a top tier. And I thought Oregon was like the second or even best team in the country. Indiana put that to bed, and Indiana, they're a legitimate national title contender. Sure, especially if Fernando Mendoza is an upgrade from Tyler Wark from last year. They've got good players. They're very well coached. They're very well disciplined. And Curry Cignetti, this is part and parcel why mentality is everything. And this goes beyond football, right? Like, You can walk into the worst situation, a group of people that don't believe they can succeed. And Kirk Cignetti, walked into Bloomington last offseason and was like, okay, yeah, Indiana football's done nothing. They haven't been to the Rose Bowl in over 50 years. Whatever. I don't care. Google me. I win. And he was loud, he was brash, and he's minute like I felt like I had to be. I had to wake people up. And now he's 17-2. And for one thing, I think Kirk Cignetti, is going to change the paradigm when it comes to evaluating new coaches. Because you have to ask yourself, if Cignetti can do this at Indiana, then how much leeway should you be giving to other coaches with their rebuilds? But then again, the other part of that is, how many coaches could do what Cignetti's doing? And the answer to that is very few. Like, luckily, Tennessee has lucked in and found a guy who can do that in Josh Heupel, because by the middle of year 2, he had us in the same position Indiana's in now after we beat Alabama. Like, it's very interesting. Like, Cignetti's impact in Indiana is not that unsimilar to Heupel's impact on Tennessee.
But I think it's bigger because Tennessee is a football school, have won national titles. They not long ago were on, I won't say top, but, Indiana, all those, wins and, being on the number 2 team in the country, it almost feels surreal because, it's kind of like Kansas 2007.
Yeah, but Kansas was a flash in the pan, and now we're seeing this for the second straight year in a row for Indiana.
Yeah, that's why it's even a bigger accomplishment because everybody thought last year's Indiana was a fluke. Oh, they came out of nowhere. Oh, but it's going to be a 1-year thing. It's not.
Yeah, I just saw on ESPN Bill Belichick walking into Berkeley, California. So Bill Belichick is on the sidelines for at least one more game.
I mean, I think he's going to stay into the rest of the season. I don't think the athletic department or even the boosters, because let's face it, North Carolina Tar Heels football boosters, they're not as impatient as like a football program boosters. I mean, they care more about what happens between November and March on the basketball court than on the gridiron.
Absolutely. And Minnesota just had a massive play. It was like they're going to have a 1st and goal at the 1, like a 70-yard run against Nebraska. Cornhuskers lead 3-0 in Minneapolis. But back on Indiana, Indiana has, I think, the 12th highest NIL budget. And apparently Mark Cuban has become much more interested in the football program. So he's becoming a big bankroller, which if you have Mark Cuban in your corner, you're in a pretty good spot. And it's a tied game. Cal Riley. The catcher with the magical season. And my, oh my.
Stadium goes crazy.
What was that? The old I forget what the guy's name called, but his
used to be T-Mobile Park.
Yeah.
I think he's.
Yeah, well, that's what the ballpark's called. But Dave Niehaus, the old Seattle Mariners play-by-play announcer, he had holy salami, and he would say, my, oh, my. And my, oh, my, the Mariners have tied the game at 2-2. Man, I don't have the audio on, but it looks like that scene in Seattle is absolutely insane. Wow. Big moment there. And especially after the past couple of innings where the Mariners had blown some opportunities to tie the game, I'm sure that is that feels electric. But anyway.
It sure does.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Reversing back to Indiana. It does feel like they have a lot of support that they didn't have before. And if you're Kurt Cignetti, you have to think about this really hard because, obviously he just got a massive extension, 8 years, $11.5 million per year. So I don't think he's going anywhere. And I think he would be crazy to go anywhere. Kirk Cignetti has got it made in Bloomington, Indiana. Like, he will probably never face hot seat pressure there.
Yeah, because he's over delivering in a sport that is not the focus of the university. The Indiana Hoosiers are known for basketball.
Right. And he's proven he can go in and beat the most talented rosters in the sport. Like, Oregon's roster is just as talented as Ohio State's roster. Every bit, with all that Nike NIL money. Like, they are. And unlike a certain Mike Gundy, who no longer is coaching with us now, Kirk Cignetti didn't have to talk any smack. He just walked in there to Eugene, Oregon, and got the dub. And Shohei Ohtani just went yard. In the game he's starting. Like, he's literally the starting pitcher tonight, and then hit a home run. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, he is the best baseball in modern in years in modern history. But anyway, back on. The lots happening in these baseball games here. With Cal Raleigh going yard, and then Shohei Ohtani doing the same thing in the night he is starting.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah. And see, this is what the MLB was missing for years when he was stuck on the Angels. Like, you're now getting Shohei Ohtani big moments in the postseason, which is massive.
That's why he left the losing franchise of Southern California and went to the winning, the franchise that wins.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, yeah, but I just think that Cignetti would be nuts to leave Indiana. I think he's going to stay there. And if you're Penn State and you can't get a Cignetti, I don't know who you get. Now, I know the top name, according to Pete Nakos of On Free, he has referenced Matt Rule, the current Nebraska coach. And, I mean, yes, he did a great job at Baylor. He is doing an okay job in Nebraska. They're currently down 7-3 right now to Minnesota. We know he's not an NFL guy with his bad tenure of Carolina. But if you fire James Franklin to go with Matt Rule, do we think Matt Rule is the guy to get Penn State to that next hump? I just doubt that.
Yeah, there's not a unanimous name because the top ones, they're not gonna want to leave, and the only program I can think of, there's uprising, like because those big bud programs, the Penn States, Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama. I even put Tennessee on this category. USC. They're trying to finding aspiring coaches. They are over delivering on their programs, and the only one I can think of is Cignetti.
Currently at Marcus Freeman as well, or Notre Dame. But I don't know why he would leave Notre Dame to go to Penn State. I mean, I know Brian Kelly left Notre Dame to go to LSU. But I mean, LSU is in Louisiana. It's a hot recruiting state. Pennsylvania is not a hot recruiting state. I don't think Penn State has the same allure that LSU has. Like, LSU has 3 national titles since 2000. Penn State has 0 since 2000, and has all the baggage with, what happened with Sandusky and Joe Paterno. And I know that's long in the past, but still, like, that's a thing, right? Like, that's, I'm sure, going to come up for at least a handful of recruits, Has, like, Penn State reorganized their, values as an athletic department. So I don't know.
That's
Also Manny Diaz from Duke, potentially, former Miami coach, which would be interesting, but he wasn't exactly great at Miami. And I don't know. Like, I don't think that's an upgrade from James Franklin. It's going to be very interesting. Like, you have to wonder if you're Penn State, are you entering into a Florida Auburn situation, right? Like, Auburn fires Gus Malzahn, and they have suffered ever since, right? With the Brian Harsin and Hugh Freeze debacles. Then you look at Florida, right? They fired Dan Mullen, who just went to the SEC championship, and they've had a very lackluster tenure with Billy Napier. Penn State has to be careful not to end up in the same situation. And, I heard someone say this. I think it was Josh Pate talking about how we're in a different era of college football, right? Where sometimes you may have a down year because teams are much closer than they used to be with the portal and how college football has changed. Things are different. And for example, even in the Tennessee fan base, I've seen this, right? People being critical of Josh Heupel. And yes, there's some decisions this year, especially the Mississippi State game towards the end, that I didn't think he handled the end of the game the best. But still, right? Like, we're 5-1. Like, we're doing very, very well, considering that we just lost our quarterback in the spring. He brings in another quarterback, and we've been able to not miss a beat so far. I think that every big program needs to remember that it needs to realize that you're not as far from being bad per se. Because the idea, right? Like, people think like 8-4 is bad in college football, right? Like that's the idea. If you lose more than 2 to 3 games, that's quote unquote bad in college football because of the way the sport is set up with the postseason. You have to realize you're not going to make the playoffs every single year. This isn't the NCAA tournament in basketball where you've got 68 slots. Because if you miss the tournament in college basketball, you're not good. I mean, I think that's fair to say. But I would say that South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Alabama were all good teams last year. But none of them made the playoffs because they weren't perfect teams. And I think solely judging a team based on whether they were good or not, if they made the playoffs, I think that's a mistake.
And if you count that, like James Franklin, we just point out, he made it to the college football semifinals last year.
He did. And he no longer has a job because they've lost 3 games in a row. And, this season wasn't going to go the way he wanted, but I mean, I think James Franklin would have come back and would have had a solid team again. But Penn State clearly thinks they can do better. And I just don't know if they're going to. And I think this could be a learning lesson for a lot of other teams. I think ours included. Of appreciate what you have because you don't know if you can get better, So that's just kind of the way I see it here when dealing with Penn State and Indiana. Obviously, James Franklin, he's going to be on College Game Day in the morning too, which that's going to be super fascinating. Oh, looks like we have a pick here. Louisville was driving, and Miller Moss, right on cue, committing another turnover. Man, Louisville had an actual really good quarterback. I mean, this Louisville team would be really good. And I mean, that's something they are very.
If only Lamar Jackson.
Lamar
Jackson was on this team.
That's an incompletion. That hit the ground. I think, yeah. We're gonna take a review, but there's no way that was an interception, bro. How did they miss that bad? And that's another conversation too. These refs. Of course, the Auburn Georgia game last week was a mess. You had the situation with whether it was a touchdown, not a touchdown, on the goal line. That was so obviously an incompletion. I don't know if you're seeing this replay, Gus. But it so obviously bounces off the turf. How is this even a review?
Do you know what's funny about the situation? It kind of proves the point from SEC football to Brazilian soccer that at the end of the day, you cannot have a multi-billion with a B, a multi-billion-dollar enterprise and people officiating are not like their solely job.
Right. I get that this sport only happens a few months a year, but you have enough money to where this can be their full-time job. They could be doing training all off season. They could be simulating games throughout the off season. It's just ridiculous how bad this has been. And then you had the situation with the timeout where Kirby Smart basically got a free timeout as well. They just looked all out of sorts. Auburn's been screwed twice now in this season. Of course, you had the situation in Oklahoma where they had a free touchdown that shouldn't have counted. And Louisville is going to hit a 48-yard field goal. So they're up now by a touchdown, 17-10.
But at the end of the day, it all go back, and the Mariners are gonna hit
a
big
God.
home run.
Grand slam! My oh my! Eugenio Suarez. Well, hold on.
Wow.
I gotta hear the crowd reaction real quick.
Yeah.
Listen to that. They're going absolutely grand salami. Yeah, that was Dave Niehaus.
Wow.
Wow. This is what October baseball is all about right here.
And I told you that if the Mariners would have come back, they're going to change the momentum of this series. And it looks like they're just doing that.
It's like the tension, that there's nothing like it because there's tension, and then it just explodes. And that's what's happening here in Seattle tonight. The Mariners lead 6-2 at the bottom of the eighth. That is a moment that will go down in Mariners lore. Right there. Oh my goodness. That's why we do it. That's why you get into October baseball. And you don't get this with the Savannah Bananas.
Yeah. You definitely don't.
Sorry to all the Bananas fans out there. This is why real baseball is better. Anyway.
But back to what?
I was going to say this also. I don't know if you thought, but they're going to be in Neyland next year, so that'll be a show, I'm sure. But in any case, back to the refs.
Yeah, and that's why referee has to be like, for example, as much criticism they have, the league that I guess treats their umpires and referees more professionally is baseball. They have a union. They have all sorts of professional and officiating baseball is even harder, I think, than football, because baseball is all about seeing the little square, figure out, if a guy hit the base or not. But at the end of the day, you have to make, from football to soccer to any sport, there's worth $1 billion, reais or dollars. You have to make your referees a profession, not like a side job. You cannot be a referee on a pro league there's worth billions as a side job.
Yeah, 100%. And hopefully they can figure this out, because it's terrible. And NFL officiating is nowhere close to this bad, and refs are never going to be perfect, but man, they've just been egregiously bad, egregiously. Like in the refs in the Tennessee-Arkansas game were awful. Like they missed about 4 or 5 penalties on Arkansas that were just egregious, like horrifically bad. And tomorrow at Alabama, the refs are going to be horrible. Because it's just the way it goes.
Yeah, and that's so funny how SEC football and Brazilian soccer are kind of the same, because that's the same feeling I have, going to cover or watch a Brazilian soccer game, especially even more on the Brazilian Championship, the first division, that the referee is going to screw up. It's going to be like, oh, it's a conspiracy for this team or that team.
Yeah. just a mess. Like the SEC has just a real problem here because I think legitimately it creates a legitimacy crisis to an extent to have refereeing this bad and being the storyline every single week, and it takes away from the sport because you want the teams to determine it. You don't want the refs to determine it, and clearly, every week it's just not been the case. You have this like we haven't even talked about how Georgia had 20 yards of offense in the first half against Auburn. I mean, they came back and won in the second half, but I mean, Georgia ain't the same team they've been the past couple of years. It's annoying that Tennessee made their offense look amazing, but that's just because our defense isn't very good. The one other game I wanted to highlight is Texas dominating OU, and I think a lot of this had to do with John Mateer still being hurt, but Texas's D line won this game. Completely overwhelmed Oklahoma's offensive line because I thought Oklahoma had fixed their O line issues, but against an elite D line like Texas, it just didn't make the difference. And you get the credit to Texas, like their running back played very well in that game, and Arch Manning didn't make critical mistakes, and that was the difference.
I told last week that Texas was going to bounce back.
Yeah, and that's such a critical win for Sark because, unlike James Franklin, Sark has responded to Texas being in a difficult situation. And now Texas is going to get a big head of steam, I would think, coming out of this. And their season's far from over. They still only have 2 losses. They could go on a run and still fretting for the playoffs. So that's a huge one. And I do think for Brent Venables now, he's got to make the playoffs this year. Because if he doesn't after this, I think for Oklahoma fans, it's a tough pill to swallow, right? Against your arch rival, you were the favorites. They were unranked. They were flailing coming in, and then you get dominated. That's a tough one.
Oh, yeah, so much.
Because go ahead.
Because at the end of the day, Oklahoma, had a perfect opportunity to put a nail on their coffin of Texas season, and they just butchered.
100%. And if Texas now goes on a massive run, then we'll point back to when they blew out Oklahoma. I think for Oklahoma now too, looking at their schedule, that game in 2 weeks in Neyland is massive against Josh Heupel, your former quarterback, and of course he came to your building last year and won. So Brent Venables loses 2 times in a row to Josh Heupel. Like that's a double blow for the Oklahoma psyche. Now, it's not only you're losing to Texas, but also you're losing to your former quarterback twice in a row. And I know last year that was mentally, I think, a hard loss for them to get over, losing the Heupel at home. So, and of course, that's the big game in 2 weeks from now. Otherwise, Gus, what were your other takeaways from last weekend of college football?
Ohio State keeps, their dominant season. But all eyes on, the last weekend of November because, it's all about, I guess, Ohio State right now is rolling to Big Ten, but they're all about that Michigan game. Texas A&M, I thought they were going to, they were kind of down in Gainesville, but they got back and won against Texas A&M. And, Texas Tech, they're silent, but they're the number 9 team in the country and undefeated.
Yeah. I think, too, one of the other ones, kind of one of the more surprising games, Ole Miss struggled bad. Like, they were trailing Washington State in the second half. A weird game. They survived, and that's what matters. But Ole Miss definitely is going to have to play way better this week. We'll talk about that game here in just a few minutes. Also, shout to Lincoln Riley, USC. That's a big win they got there against Michigan. I think that's a potentially a program-changing win for them, right? Because I think there was a lot of doubts about can Lincoln Riley win in the Big Ten at USC? Because a lot of the narrative around him was he left Oklahoma to avoid the SEC, then USC goes to the Big Ten, and he's been exposed up to this point. But for Michigan to beat Michigan 31-13, big win, and that's not a great loss for Sharon Moore either. A lot of questions about them. Also, Arizona State will not be in the playoffs this year. 42-10 loss to Utah. They just Losing Cam Scatabo was the heart and engine of that team last year. And Sam Levitt's proven that he cannot carry. Arizona State the same way that he could last year with Scatabo. Yeah. Also, Iowa State. Horrible couple of weeks for them. They have fallen off terribly.
And how about, I mean, you mentioned him and his program, but how about those North Carolina Tar Heels? I mean, they're just, falling apart.
Oh, 100%. They play tonight here at California. Also, shout out to South Florida and Alex Golis. Huge win on the road against North Texas last week. Big win in the G5 race there. All right, let's look at this week. Underrated games for the week. I have two guests that I picked out. One for me is number 12, Georgia at Duke. Duke obviously had a lot of preseason expectations. They haven't exactly been great, but they are 4-2. Also, the Mariners have just won. So the Mariners are now up 3-2 after a 6-2 win. What a game that was. What a comeback for the Mariners. They're a game away from the World Series. The Dodgers are now up 3-0 in the bottom of the second, so they look like they're going to cruise to a sweep, potentially. Also, we got Louisville still up 17-10. Miami has a 3rd and 6. And they throw a screen on 3rd and 6, and they get stopped in the back. Oh, why? You have a fifth-year senior in Carson Beck. Let him throw down the field. What are you doing, Mario? Mario? What are we doing? Oh, boy. Nebraska has a 3rd and 28, down 7-3. I don't know how that happened. I wasn't paying attention. Patrick Mahomes Jr. here. Can he do something for Nebraska? Anyway, Georgia Tech and Duke. I think this is a tricky spot for Georgia Tech. I mean, they could have lost to Wake Forest a few weeks ago, but they're still undefeated. And especially if Miami loses tonight, and then they would be like, I think them and Virginia would be alone on the top of the ACC. Could you imagine Georgia Tech, Virginia for the ACC championship?
Yeah.
that is a possibility.
Big one, even.
Yeah, Miami losing tonight, especially. But I think that's a tough one for Georgia Tech. Wouldn't be shocked if they lost. Also, I think Oklahoma, coming off that loss last week, going to South Carolina. And for me, this is probably at South Carolina Super Bowl this year. We all know how dangerous South Carolina is. Because they have Oklahoma this week and they got Alabama next week. So for Shane Beamer, of how bad the season has gone so far, he needs one of these. Really, really needs one of these. So.
Oh, yeah. To kind of, show that he is capable of winning on the big spot.
Yeah. All right. And Gus, do you have any underrated games this week?
I do. LSU going to Nashville to face Vanderbilt in probably a do or die game. Whoever loses this game, their season is done.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And if for Brian Kelly losing that game, oh boy, he's gonna get his seat warm.
Very, very warm. Now I've got upset alert, guys, and this might be a bit of a hot take. I've got Arkansas pulling off the upset against Texas A&M tomorrow. And here's why. It's going to be a rainy day in Arkansas. They're probably going to have weather delays because there's probably severe weather in the area. So it's going to be a weird day. I think Arkansas has found some life with Bobby Petrino. Obviously, we'll talk about the game against Tennessee last week. Arkansas runs the ball very, very well. I think Arkansas can pull off the upset against Texas A&M. What would be your upset pick?
My upset pick is to Washington State beating Virginia. I mean, they almost beat Ole Miss last week.
Yeah, is that where's in that game at that game is in Charlottesville. So okay,
yeah,
I don't hate that pick. I think Texas at Kentucky too. It's a night game up there. I think Texas will win that game but comfortably. But I feel like Kentucky will be in Super Bowl mode because I think for Mark Stoops, you got Texas this week, you got Tennessee next week. Can you do anything those 2 games at home at night? I think that's a big question for the Wildcats. So, all right, let's go into some picks here. First, the Holy War in Utah, one of the most underrated rivalries in all of college football. Number 23 Utah, number 15 BYU. This game effectively is, in my opinion, for second place in the Big 12. So who at least 2 teams will be the main challenger to Texas Tech?
Give me BYU.
I am gonna go Utah. I think Utah will find a way to get it done in Provo. That's gonna be a hard scene because they'll go crazy. It's gonna be a crazy scene in Provo. It's been a while since Utah has gone there, but I think the Utes find a way. All right, the battle for I think it's for the Shaq Jewel Egg or something. Like it's a weird name. It's number 20 USC at number 13 Notre Dame. Who wins this rivalry?
For both of them, like LSU, Vandy is a do or die game, especially for Notre Dame. If Notre Dame loses this game, then for the love of God, they're gonna be unranked. Please unrank them, and they're done for the season.
Literally, this is their third and final ranked opponent on their schedule. They, if they lose this game, they should be disqualified from playoff consideration.
Come on. And for way less, Michigan, Illinois, and Arizona State were dropped from the rankings. So if Notre Dame loses to USC, it would be outrageous to have a 3-loss team in the AP poll.
Yeah. I'll say to say we are not a pro Notre Dame podcast.
No.
But that being said, I'm taking Notre Dame to win this game though, because I gotta see Lincoln Riley win this type of game on the road before picking him. So I'm taking the Fighting Irish.
I'm going with USC.
All right, you're going with the Trojans to end Notre Dame season. Definitely huge game there, massive game for both teams. All right, one of that game you mentioned previously, number 10 LSU at number 17 Vanderbilt. Who do you got here?
Go Vandy. I'm going with Vandy.
I agree. I'm going Vandy too. I just don't think LSU's offense is very good. I think Vandy will get it done. Although I think it'll be a low scoring game. I might bet the under in this one. All right. Number 5 Ole Miss at number 9 Georgia, the college game day game, but in my view, not the real game of the week.
Oh yeah. But I mean, in terms of ranking wise, definitely, because if Ole Miss wins this game, I don't see them leaving the top 4. And for Georgia, I don't think their season is going to be done, but they are definitely then it's going to be a low seed if they win out.
Right. And for Ole Miss, right, if you win this game, then just looking at the rest of your schedule, Ole Miss, remember, they've never made the SEC championship game. In the 33 years the championship game has existed, Ole Miss has never won. Mississippi State has been once, but Ole Miss has never been. So
and when Mississippi State went, they had a team in orange to beat them.
Right, and think about this, right? Like if Georgia survives, if they can beat Georgia, the rest of their games are at Oklahoma versus South Carolina, Citadel versus Florida, at Miss State, which I think they would be favored in all those games. So huge one for Ole Miss here. Georgia didn't play well last week. Georgia, honestly, they haven't really looked good since they played Tennessee. At least on offense. They were sluggish against Kentucky. Obviously, Bama came in and beat them like they always do. We're sluggish against Auburn. So Georgia is due to have a game where they put it all together. And to me, this feels like that game. I think Georgia's putting it all together and they're going to win here.
For me, I'll pick Ole Miss.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a massive. I think, frankly, that would put Ole Miss in a massive position to be in their first ever SEC championship game for sure. If they can pull it off, this is probably Lane Kiffin's biggest game at Ole Miss.
Oh yeah, no
Like
doubt about it.
this would be just a massive one for him. All right, my game of the week. One of the biggest rivalries in college football. I think to me it's one of the top 5 or top 10 easily. In terms of the history, in terms of the pageantry, in terms of what this means. All you gotta say is the 3rd Saturday in October. All you gotta say. We all know what we're talking about. We all know what's on the line. We all know what we smoke if we win. Gus. 11 Tennessee at 6 Alabama. And let's reverse back. I've intentionally tried to not talk about either one of these teams heading back into this game. So let's go back first, and we'll talk about our Vols. They hosted Arkansas last week. Got their first win over the Hawks since 2007 in a 34-31 win in a game that was kind of weird. They were down most of the first half, tied at halftime. The Vols built a big lead in the second half. Then Arkansas made a very late rally, but the Vols were able to hold on. Clearly, some of the main takeaways I took away from this game, run defense in the first half was bad. Well, we did not stop the run at all. I'm going to give credit to Bobby Petrino. Some of the schemes he had were very, very nice. But in the second half, we were able to really clamp down there. And then you got to give credit to Taven Green there in the fourth quarter for making some really big plays to try to give Arkansas a chance to come back and win. Clearly, our injuries on defense are still hurting us terribly. And this is the worst defense we've had since 2022. And it's unfortunate because we have the best offense that we've had since 2022. And Joey Aguilar obviously still playing very well. I thought the run game, obviously Deshaun Bishop was great, and we will have him. He will play tomorrow. Got a little bit hurt towards the end of the game. But I'll say that, you look at Star Thomas and Peyton Lewis, they're not as efficient running the ball as I would like. And I think, tomorrow is going to be a massive game in terms of how effective are we going to be in running the football? Because Bama, if you look at it statistically, Tennessee has a top 10 passing offense, and Alabama has a top 5 passing defense. So I think if you can run the football tomorrow, that would be absolutely massive, especially with Deshaun Bishop. And I think for Alabama, that'll be a key for theirs to try to take away Tennessee. Now, on the opposite side, for Alabama, they had a big game last week. They went on the road to Missouri. I thought this was a tough spot for them. And you got to give them credit. They got out of Columbia with the win. What's crazy is I've heard some Bama fans saying, oh, we should have beaten Missouri by a lot more. But Missouri is a good team. Missouri is a very good team, and you had to go there. It was an 11 a.m. kick. I think for Alabama, this was a big one. A very, very big one. And I think the thing they should be most proud of is you held Ahmad Hardy, who has been a really, really good player for Missouri all year. 12 carries, 52 yards, only 4.3 yards per carry. If Tennessee wants to win on their own Tuscaloosa, we're going to have Deshaun Bishop or whoever becomes our best running back in this game. You start Thomas or Peyton Lewis. You're going to have him average more than that, because if you have everyone up together, average about 6 yards a carry, which is decent. And I think Tennessee is going to have to do more. But Pagula, only 16 of 28, 1 of 62, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And meanwhile, on offense, Bama did have 1 turnover. Ty Simpson had a fumble. But Ty Simpson, once again, 23 of 31, 203 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. Ty Simpson this entire year only has 1 interception. And for as bad as we have been on defense in terms of giving up yards, the 2 things we have been good at are getting sacks. We lead the league in sacks, and we force a lot of turnovers. That have been at least the equalizer. We have been a bend, but sometimes don't break. And Tennessee is going to have to find a way to cause the havoc plays, right? Because the big thing here has been Jem Miller, the running back for Alabama. He has been questionable all week. It appears he is going to play tomorrow. And if he ends up playing, that's huge because he is by far their best running back. And I think that's a massive difference in this football game because Tennessee has struggled stopping the run. We let Mississippi State fluff Bothwell really control us 2 weeks ago. We struggled against Georgia stopping the run. Struggled last week stopping the run. And here in this game, especially with the passing attack that Alabama has, because Ty Simpson is a very, very efficient quarterback. He reminds me a lot of Mac Jones. What he was able to do at Alabama. I think that's kind of the best comparison here to me. And especially when you look at when they have Isaiah Horton, they have a Jeremy Bernard. You obviously have Ryan Williams, right? But they have a lot of talent on the outside. And of course, we are missing our two best players in the defensive secondary. And we have basically all year between Jamar McCoy and Ricky Gibson. The dynamics here, in my view, are not great for Tennessee. I think if you just look at it on paper, I think Bama's offense matches up favorably to Tennessee. And I think their strength on defense matches up with our strength of our passing attack. So what this comes down to, in my view, Gus, is we're going to have to get some turnovers, get some pressure on Ty Simpson, because Ty Simpson has had issues when he's under pressure. He is not the best quarterback under pressure. That's how you can maybe get him into making a mistake. And then Joey Aguilar is going to have to do what he has done. And Joey Aguilar has carried us at times this year, carried us in that Georgia game especially, and helped carry us back to a win at Mississippi State. He's going to have to do that. And we're going to have to get more out of Chris Brazzell, right? Brazzell only had one catch for 5 yards last week. We're going to need more of them. Now, Braylon Staley was great. But I think all three of the main receivers, when you look at Staley, when you look at Brazzell, when you look at Mike Matthews, they're all going to have big moments tomorrow. Miles Kitzelman is going to have a big moment tomorrow or two. It's going to take, I think, a little bit of everyone to pull this off. But I think it is possible, right? We have beaten Bama 2 of the last 3 years. We are no longer the program we were 5-10 years ago, where you looked at Alabama was on Matt Kell. This is a game Tennessee can win, but it's going to take playing at their best that they have this year.
And it's so funny. Nick Saban dominated the series against Tennessee and only lost in his 16th game against Tennessee. Kellen DeBoer is still 0-1 against Tennessee.
Yeah, and I would argue that Kalen DeBoer faces way more pressure in this game than Josh Heupel. Kalen DeBoer cannot afford to go 0-2 against Tennessee. That would be unfathomable to Alabama fans. For him to fall 0-2 to Tennessee.
And losing another big game at home.
The thing about that, that would be more losses against Tennessee in 2 years than Nick Saban ever had. To us.
Yeah. It's
quite
astonishing.
Yeah, I mean, that's all the pressures in Alabama, and they're coming off their 4th really tough game in a row. They've had to play Georgia, Vanderbilt, Missouri. Now they're playing Tennessee. Tennessee, right? They've come off UAB, a bye week, and then Arkansas. And then Arkansas gave us a tough game. And I'll just be honest here. I do think Alabama's a better team. I think if you take out the Florida State game, Alabama has played one of the top 5 teams in the country, in my opinion. And honestly, they've looked like the best SEC team since Florida State. However, we did see them against Florida State, and we know that under DeBoer, Alabama has had some clunkers. So that Alabama team has kind of randomly shown up at times. And usually they show up on the road. And unfortunately for Tennessee, this game's in Tuscaloosa. DeBoer has not lost in Tuscaloosa yet. He didn't lose in Tuscaloosa last year because all of his losses were on the road or in the bowl game. And, of course, his one loss this year was on the road. So he hasn't lost yet at home. But, got to remember, look at the 2 previous times Heupel has played in Tuscaloosa. Heupel faces a lot of criticism of the way his teams play on the road. 2021, Tennessee, massive underdog. We're tied heading into the 4th quarter. Then we were going back and forth with them the entire game. 2 years ago, Tennessee dominates the first half. We were up 13 at halftime. We probably should have been up by 3 touchdowns at halftime. But then we get just destroyed in the second half. Can Josh Heupel's Vols put together a full 4 quarters in Tuscaloosa? That's the great question. because we know they can hang for at least a quarter, a half, maybe longer. Can they get to the end of the game? Can they be in that game? Can they not let the Bama crowd overwhelm them? Because, I know Bama's crowd has faced criticism at times for not being the most engaged crowd, but they'll be engaged tomorrow night. Night game. They actually take Tennessee seriously again as a rival. They'll be engaged tomorrow. But this is where you find out truly how far your program has come with Josh Heupel in Tennessee. Even not if you even win the game or not, but whether or not you go down there and you give an effort worthy of a high-end SEC program. And I expect Tennessee to go down there and give them a game. Give them the best game possible for 4 quarters. And have chances to win this football game. And and honestly, like a win here would erase the Georgia loss to me.
Totally, 100%.
Because that's kind of right now with this season where it's like we should be undefeated right now. We really should be undefeated right now and 6-0. And where yes, obviously this is the Alabama game. You really want to win this game. But obviously, it's interesting. We're back in the same position we were last year for the third Saturday. Remember, both teams entered that game with 1 loss. And Tennessee was able to win that football game. Can we do it again? And I think, I feel like when you look at the 2 wins, right? The 22 win, the 24 win. The 22 win was 52-49, a shootout for the ages. In my opinion, the single greatest football game I have ever watched. And I might be biased in that opinion, but in my opinion, it's the single best football game I've ever watched. Last year was a lot uglier, a lot more defensive, but they got it done. I think this one's going to be closer to the 22 and the 24. I think both offenses are better this year. And Tennessee's defense is definitely not as good as they were last year. Bama's defense is probably similar. And that's what ultimately concerns me about the ultimate result in this game is I don't really trust our defense to get the stops that we need. But you have to hope that the experience that the guys like Ty Redmond have gotten early in the season, that it begins to really pay off in a game like this. It's what you have to hope for. And hope that the breaks in this game go Tennessee's way. And I do think that a lot has to happen here for Tennessee to win this football game ultimately. But I think Joey Aguilar gives us a shot to win.
I agree. I think he can be the decisive factor. Give me the Vols.
I'm going to pick Alabama to win this one. And we'll say I really hope I am desperately wrong on that one. But as I said, this defense is going to have to prove that they can get some stops here. Force some turnovers. First time sends them into some mistakes. Because I think we're going to score in the high 20s, at least in the 30s. We could score more than that potentially. We just got to find a way to get those stops. But obviously, I think that I know Hype will have the boys to play. And it's going to be it's the third Saturday in October, Gus. That's all I got to say. Everyone in that locker room knows what this game means. We all know what this means. It's different. In my opinion, it's like the Southern Michigan State, Michigan-Ohio State, right? Like this is the game I think about year-round. It could be the middle of March, the middle of February, the middle of June. I'm thinking about the third Saturday in October. And I'm thinking about making a cigar tomorrow. That's what I want to do. And, we haven't won in Tuscaloosa since 2003. And it'd be really sweet to win on the road in this game. So, hopefully, the Vols can find a way to get it done in Tuscaloosa. And if we can get it done, then playoffs don't only become a possibility, in my opinion. They become the expectation if we win this football game. because we'll be favorites in basically every game left. I think it would be favorites at home if we won this game against Oklahoma. I think it would be favorites on the road to Florida, and definitely favorites against Vandy, New Mexico State, and Kentucky. And if you lose this game, you're probably not making the playoffs. I don't think you're going undefeated the rest of the season. Possibly. So, anyway, massive, massive game. Biggest game of the year. Tennessee, Alabama. Go Vols. Hope I'm wrong. Let's get it done. All right. NFL Week 6 is concluded. We already have one game of Game 7. Week 7 has already occurred. And then the biggest news from over the past week is Brian Callahan, I am free. He has been fired as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. But we have to really ask, though, is this honestly, like, truthfully, even because it doesn't even begin to fix the issues with the Tennessee Titans? Because I think, this is like a mole on the side of your body that you cut off. But there is still severe problems inside this organization.
Yeah, I think Tennessee Titans they're lost. They of course probably lost a great coach. Look what Mike Vrabel's doing in New England. They're leading their division. Nobody would have thought that on year 2, but and look what the Titans are just a shell of themselves.
Yeah, and guess who the Titans play this week, Gus?
The Patriots.
They play the Patriots this week in Nashville.
Oh, Mike Vrabel coming back.
Yeah, and Mike Vrabel does not strike me as the type of guy who forgets stuff like that. I think a lot of these competitive type guys, especially someone who is very successful like Mike Vrabel, he's going to want to prove a point in this game. He's going to look at Amy Adams Strunk and be like, I am proving a point. And that's ultimately the real problem here is Amy Adams Strunk. She doesn't know what she's doing as the owner. We're seesawing back and forth. And then there's a lot of chatter that Amy Adams Strunk fired him at this point in the season because she didn't want it to look like Mike Vrabel was the reason why they fired Brian Callahan. It was an ego decision to fire him now. And plus, also, Callahan kind of trashed Cam Ward after the Raiders loss on Sunday, which Cam Ward was not good. Like, Cam Ward literally had a ball that he just randomly dropped. It's super weird. But I don't know. In terms of head coaching candidates, I think you need someone who can bring some excitement to the team. Someone like a John Gruden. Like, John Gruden is my number one candidate for this job. I don't know if you can convince him to take this job, but I would love for him to be the head coach. Also, guys like Cliff Kingsbury, Robert Saleh, those are all candidates I would love, I think, in Nashville. But the question is, who are you going to get to be in this messed up franchise? Because you have an owner who seems to be disengaged and is not hiring good football people, not hiring good football minds. And I think ultimately at this point, when you hire a head coach, you got to give them like 3 years. Because like we have fired a head coach, hired a GM, fired a GM, hire a head coach. We keep on seesawing back and forth like we're on a playground. That's not a way to run a successful franchise. You don't have the transfer portal in the NFL. Like, we're in a position where you have to be more patient, I think, in the NFL than,
in college football comparison.
Yeah. So, because the mess that the Titans are in right now, it's going to take a couple of years to fix. I think there are where the Lions were back in like 2018 or so, right? Like when Dan Campbell took over. Like you have to let them build, and it's frustrating. The professional franchise should not look this bad, but they are. And that's just the truth of where we are. Yeah, it just sucks.
Yeah,
But
it's I feel like the fans are probably just deal with the emotions of like we were good and now we're bad really quickly.
yeah, at least I've got the Vols, right? Like it feels like it's like been inverse with as the better the Vols get, the worse the Titans get. So
And the other way around too.
yeah. It's so funny. I can't have them both be good. I would be too unstoppable. I'd be too cocky, Gus. And if both the Titans and Vols are good at the same time. So,
The state of Tennessee will be unbearable in football.
yeah, it'd be a. But imagine Indiana though, like an IU Colts fan. I know our friend Jason Wyrick is not an IU fan. He hates IU. But IU is right now third in the country, and then you have the Indianapolis Colts, who are right now the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah, who would have thought of that?
Yeah, the basketball state, the Hoosier hysteria is actually on the gridiron right now. So, yeah, but the one result we've had so far from this week, the Bengals beating the Steelers 33-31. Joe Flacco. I mean, you got to say this, like for a game with two 40-0 quarterbacks, this was a fantastic football game last night.
And what a bet that at least kind of paid off the trade that everybody thought was kind of out of the box. It worked for this game.
It did. I mean, I think it just goes for that for one. Jake Browning is never going to get another chance in the NFL. Like he has sat on the Bengals bench for 4 years and was horrible. He looked bad with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins as his quarterbacks. And Louisville, Cards, touchdown Louisville. Chris Bell, they're up by double digits in Miami. Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh my gosh. The Mario Cristobal, man. It never fails. It never fails.
Yep. Oh boy. Can he bounce back in the fourth quarter?
Wow. Carson Beck. Carson Beck, man. I mean, you just, yeah, that's insane. Wow. 24-13 Cardinals. Man, yeah, we got to get Jason Wyrick on the show.
He's probably too static to be on right now.
When is he watching the game? Yeah. So, in any case, yeah, so we'll definitely keep on monitoring this developing situation in Miami. It's a red alert, DEFCON 1 for Miami, down 24-13. But back on the Bengals though, Jake Browning is just, it's unboundable how bad he looked in those couple of games he was the starting quarterback. And for Joe Flacco, who's had less than 2 weeks with his playbook to come in and be great, just that's embarrassing for Jake Browning. But hey, great for Joe Flacco. Like Joe Flacco, will definitely have a very memorable career, right? Like he has a Super Bowl ring. There's that whole meme whether or not he's elite or not.
Is he a Hall of Fame kind of player or not?
I don't know about that. I mean, yes, he has a Super Bowl ring, and I think he was he wasn't the MVP that year in that Super Bowl. Let's see, he was Super Bowl MVP. He's the comeback player of the year. But like he doesn't have any other accolades. He has never been invited to a Pro Bowl. He has been invited to one Pro Bowl. So I don't know. I don't think he has a Hall of Fame career necessarily, but I mean he's had a very good career. And he got the Super Bowl. So hey, you gotta respect him. So In any case, yeah, and also for the Steelers, I think this is evidence of why no one takes them seriously as a Super Bowl contender. Um, you lose games like this, that defense, that secondary, not very good. Now, Aaron Rodgers, got to give him credit. He's resurrected himself. He looks really good.
Yeah, I guess not being on the worst team in the league right now really can make you better.
I mean, like, which organization sucks more out of their players, the Jets or the Titans? Because
Jets. I mean, at least the Titans since 2010 had like what, two good to at least decent to good playoff runs.
I mean, we had 3 straight years where we won the division. You know?
Yeah. I mean, since like those 2010, 2011 run that stopped in the AFC title game, the Jets have been pretty much nothing.
Yeah, it's just yeah. And for Justin Fields, I mean, I feel bad for him because I don't even think he's necessarily playing awful, but it's just something's going wrong every single game. You know? All right, let's pick some games here for this week. Week 7. We have another 9:30 game. The Los Angeles Rams travel around the world to the London Jaguars. Okay, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Excuse me. We all know the NFL would love to put the Jaguars in London. But what do we think here? The Puka Nacua is out for the Los Angeles Rams. So that's a big injury update here for this game.
Give me quote-unquote home game. Give me quote-unquote the home team. Give me the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I agree. Give me the Jaguars as well to win this one. I mean, very pleasant surprises here so far for Jacksonville, although the Seattle came down to beat them last week. But, hey, Seattle is just a better team. All right. Mike Vrabel Bowl. The Vrabel comes back to Nashville, Patriots and Titans. There is a part of me that wants Vrabel to beat the Titans by as much as possible. I'm going to be honest.
Give me the Patriots.
Patriots by a lot. Bet them to cover. I bet they win this thing by 20, 30 plus. Okay, we have the New Orleans Saints 1-5 going to the 3-2 Chicago Bears, who had an epic win on Monday Night Football. Great comeback against Washington. I think one of the best games so far of this year. Got revenge for the Hail Mary loss last year.
Give me the Bears. They have all the momentum.
Yeah, the Bears. The Bears look like they could be a playoff team. Like Caleb Williams is coming into his own. Like Caleb Williams is starting to look like the franchise quarterback that he was projected to be. So, Chicago. Yeah, man, bad game here. 1-5 Miami at 1-5 Cleveland. How has Mike McDaniel not been fired? You see where he basically came out, where Tua came out and said that the players aren't showing up for players-only meetings. They're showing up late for practice, and it sounds like there's no discipline on that team.
Yeah, because, Mike McDaniel is probably good to a really good coordinator, but he's not a cultural leader that a head coach in football, whether college or pro, needs to be.
Yeah, like I think whoever is our head coach, I would love Mike McDaniel as the OC. Would love him as the OC in Tennessee. I don't want him as a head coach, though. I think the Browns will win here.
Yeah, give me the Browns.
But I think the Browns are at least playing hard this year.
Yeah. But it's so funny, kind of like the Tank Bowl.
Yep, one of the first Tank Bowls that you'll see this year. Okay, we have the Las Vegas Raiders going to Arrowhead for Kansas City, this AFC West rivalry game. Who do you got here?
Give me the Chiefs, but it's so funny that if the Raiders wins, they literally tie everything with the Chiefs. Who would have thought of that?
Yeah, but the Chiefs will win. The Chiefs, this is the time of year where the Chiefs will start to get it together, and they'll be annoyingly in the playoffs. All right. Interesting game here. The 4-2 Philadelphia Eagles facing Carson Wentz and the 3-2 Minnesota Vikings.
Vikings.
Here you got Carson Wentz beating Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is kind of spiraling right now, but I think the extra couple of days off from the embarrassment last week in New York is good for them. I think Philadelphia comes back and wins this one.
Yeah.
But it would be funny if Carson Wentz beat them.
Give me the Eagles, and I'll bet the under. I think it's going to be a 1-point game.
Ooh, okay. All right. We have the free Carolina Panthers. They are at 500 for the first time. They're not at 500 for the first time since it's been like 3 or 4 years since they have not had a losing record this late in the season. At the winless Jets. I'm going to go Carolina.
Carolina.
Yeah. Can't believe in the Jets. All right. At least the other New York team, the Giants, have some life. 2-4 Giants going to the 4-2 Broncos.
Give me Denver. No doubt about it.
I'll go Denver. Hey, turnover. Louisville has turned over Miami. Oh, my goodness. And that's Miami's third turnover. And the Miami fans are beside themselves in the oh my gosh, what happened? Oh, but they're going to call roughing the passer. Oh, no. So Miami.
What a turn of events.
The ACC is stepping in. They're trying to save. Oh, come on, man. He already was. So basically, they called roughing the passer. The defender was at Beck when he still had the ball in his hands. How is that rough of the passer? Wow. I can't believe that. That's terrible. Terrible call. Wow. And that's going to keep Miami in this game. Wow. Okay. So back in the NFL, part of me wants to pick the Giants, but I'll go Broncos at home. But hey, Jackson Dart, shout out to him. Hey, hold on. Jason's calling actually real quick. Let me take this real quick.
Oh, yeah. So I think in my thought that the Broncos with Bo Nix are, really on a good spot right now. They're 2-0 at home. So I'll say this. I feel like at the end of the day, they're playing at home. So definitely the Broncos.
Yeah. So apparently, that was just Jason. So he's out on the road. So he's actually not watching this game right now. And now says that he is afraid to turn it on because he is not watching. So
don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, don't want to jinx it. So come on, Cards, pull off for Jason here. Anyway. Okay. So all right, Broncos over Giants. Speaking of Jason, we have the Indianapolis Colts 5-1 at the 4-2 Chargers.
Give me Los Angeles.
Yeah, because the one loss the Colts have had so far was in LA to the Rams. I'm going to go Colts. I'm going to go the Colts here. I think, the Chargers are down to their third running back. Herbert's will have to win this one. I like the Colts here. Okay. We have the Commanders 3-3 at the 2-3-1 Dallas Cowboys.
And it's so funny how this game, if the Cowboys win this game, they're still alive in the division. Because then they're going to be, if the Eagles somewhat loses in Minneapolis, they're going to be a 1 game away from leading the division. Oh, and it's intercepted.
Oh, man. Ball don't lie. Ball don't lie. Wow. So let's see what happened here. Just a bad interception. Wow. So Louisville, well on their way. Except imagine the group chats are going kind of nuts right now watching this game. Yeah. So Jason saying, hi, friends, go Cards. As the Louisville just got an interception, they're still up 24-13 midway for the fourth quarter. Man, this would be because Louisville, it seemed like that probably they were out of contention a few weeks ago after losing to Virginia, but they're able to hold on here. Louisville back in play. Okay, so I am going to go with Washington to win this one. I just don't think Dallas is very good.
Give me Dallas.
Okay, so 425 here you have the free 1-1 Green Bay Packers at the 2-4 Arizona Cardinals. It feels like Arizona is on their way to a really bad season, especially after the Titans debacle a couple of weeks ago. Now they played the Colts tough last week, but I'm going to go with the Packers.
Give me the Cardinals.
Okay, Arizona. And then Sunday Night Football, you have the 3-2 Falcons, who are just coming off beating the Bills. The Falcons are the most weird team this year in the NFL. You have no idea. They could be the worst team in the league that week, or they could be the best team in the league that week. You have no idea what the Atlanta Falcons are going to do versus the 4-2 San Francisco 49ers, and they're still riding Mac Jones because Brock Purdy is still hurt. I'm going to go with San Francisco.
I'm going with Atlanta.
Atlanta going across the road, the country there to win. We got 2 games Monday Night Football again. Now, this is the game of the week right here. This is an amazing football game. I'm glad this is on prime time. Tampa Bay 5-1 going to 4-2 Detroit. I think this is like an early MVP fight here, right? Like Baker Mayfield versus Goff. Because I think right now, if I had to vote MVP for 6 weeks, I'd vote Baker Mayfield as an MVP.
And also, there's implications in terms of seeding because I believe the Lions and the Bucs are going to be in the playoffs. So whoever wins it, for example, the Buccaneers, are really on a good trajectory to be the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. But I'm going to go with the Bucs here to win on the road.
Lions.
I'll show it'll be a wild atmosphere. And then the last game, this will also be an interesting one. You got the 3-3 Houston Texans, or 2-3 Houston Texans. Of course, they started off 0-3, but they're trying to get back to 500 here at the 4-2 Seahawks. And hey, Sam Darnold having another really good season so far with Seattle. I mean, hey, we all thought he was a bust with the New York Jets. I mean, it's insane. Like, if your career gets better instantly the moment that you get away from the Jets, and Miami has just turned over Louisville right back. So, all right, so this game is far from over. So game is on.
But in terms of the Monday Night Football late game, give me Seattle.
I agree. Give me Seattle as well. Those are all the games for this week. Okay, one last note here. The NASCAR playoffs are underway, and we're going to have another Shohei Ohtani homer. 2 of 2 for Shohei on the night where he's starting. He's not given up any runs so far, and he's
just a beast. There's no way to explain it. He's just the best baseball player in the 21st century.
100%. Unbelievable. I mean, it's just unreal. It really is. Like you'll never see this again. And we're gonna have a touchdown for Miami. So now it's 24-19, and I imagine they'll go for 2. They should go for 2 here. Try to make this 24-21. Also, want to mention that Nebraska is down in the third quarter, 7-6 to Minnesota. So that would be a bad loss for Nebraska. So, yeah. Okay. So, back to NASCAR real quick. They were at Las Vegas last week. It was a great finish, exciting finish between Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson. But Hamlin was able to get the win. That's his 60th win in his career, and that puts him in the Final Four. So, congratulations, Denny Hamlin. He'll be racing for a championship. And the next 2 weeks are kind of wild cards. This week they're at Talladega, where anybody could win, quite literally. And Miami just ran the Philly special to get 2 points. So it's 24-21. Louisville with 7.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But back on NASCAR, we have Talladega this week. Literally anybody could win. I think for guys like Joey Logano, they need to win here. before Martinsville next week. And yeah, that's all the American sports that we have.
Yeah, here in Brazil, the Brazilian Championship is back after the FIFA break, and Palmeiras and Flamengo had really huge wins on this week 28 matchups against Bragantino and Botafogo. Palmeiras 5-1 and Flamengo 3-0, which means they're gonna play each other, I'll say, for the national title. Sunday, 4 p.m. Brazil time, 3 p.m. Eastern. A lot of implications on the field, off the field. Both presidents currently don't like each other. They are, have all the issues also with the creating the league, with dispute over how much money each team is gonna get with their TV contracts, but also especially on the field. Palmeiras is the number one team, the number one position. Flamengo the second. So if Palmeiras wins, I'll say the Brazilian Championship is done, because then Palmeiras is going to be 6 points ahead of the second place. So I don't see them Palmeiras losing the title because they're so consistent. But
I mean, and they just do this every year. It feels like, where they have a surge.
Yeah. Yeah, they know how to build up and be their best on the right spot. So, but the game is in Rio. So Flamengo has to show up. Even if Flamengo wins, they're not going to get the number one position because they have only 17 wins compared to 19 wins from Palmeiras. But still, though, Flamengo has to win in order to keep the Brazilian Championship alive for them. And the Cinderella story is still going. Mirassol, second consecutive win. They're still in fourth place. A city with less than 100,000 people. They're still in the fourth place in the first division in the Brazilian league. And down in the bottom, Santos had a huge win over Corinthians that got them a little bit out of the relegation zone. I don't see those four teams changing on the relegation zone. Vitória, even though they won their rivalry game against Bahia, Fortaleza, Juventude, and Sport. I don't see that changing. Even though Santos, Internacional, and Atlético Mineiro and Corinthians are not that far from the relegation zone, but I still don't see those four teams on the bottom kind of making a comeback to remain in the first division. Rio Branco had their meeting to figure out the next year's third division in the state. Oh, most intercepted by
Miller and Moss. Please don't lose this game, man. Anyway, continue.
No, just to wrap up. So the A3 is going to be like last year. 16 teams play against each other. So it's going to be 15 weeks. The last two teams go relegated to the fourth division in the state of São Paulo. The A team, the top 8 is going to go to the playoffs, then quarterfinals, then semifinals. Whoever makes the finals get promoted to the second division, and of course there's going to be the champion. So let's see if Rio Branco can get the good players to have another good season like the last 2 years.
Yeah, and there's an American soccer story I did want to add in. Christian Pulisic. There was obviously the U.S. had a friendly earlier this week. They won 2-1 over Australia, but in that game, Christian Pulisic got hurt as hamstring, and AC Milan is upset with the U.S. Federation for him getting hurt because he's going to be out for some time. And in Milan's third place right now in the Italian league. To me, I get that Milan's paying a lot of money and all that, but I think they got to get over it, right? It's an international game, stuff happens in it. But I'm just curious, Gus, what do you think is the potential impact on the U.S. team next year? Because how long is it going to take him to get back from a hamstring? is this something where he may not be the same player afterwards?
No. I think it's good. It's of course not. It's always bad to get injured, but I think he's gonna go back. He's gonna come back and still play for Milan, and also, being ready for the World Cup next year.
Absolutely. We're kind of soon to believe on the draw. Like there should be a draw in 2 months. So coming soon. So the World Cup certainly will be much more on our minds here. The sooner we get. Just real quick before we wrap up here, some quick last score updates. Dodgers up 4-0, top of the fifth. Dodgers are well on their way. Shohei Ohtani at 70 pitches has hit 2 homers. Just a mythical performance. A performance you'll be that our grandkids in 50 years will not believe happened. Nebraska's down 7 to Minnesota.
And before we go, Nick, I want to say this. I guess in a couple of days, our podcast officially is going to be 4 years old. 4 years.
That's unbelievable. I still remember when you messaged me to start this, and it's exciting to get to do stuff with you again in this capacity. And I can't believe we're now over 200 episodes into this thing. I hadn't even started at News 12 when we started this.
Yeah.
And that's
our podcast started on October 19, 2021, after the Ole Miss game, and it's been a journey that in our lives, as much craziness that happens, job-wise, personal-wise, we have this podcast that we kept it going. That makes me proud.
And we both evolve, we change, but we keep on going, and we talk literally all the sports, and we cover more ground than most other podcasts do, and that's something I'm deeply proud of. And hey, we're gonna have more coming up. We got basketball starting back next week at the NBA and college basketball, so we'll have to talk some about that next week. Of course, we'll have the World Series by then. We're coming out to the end of the NASCAR season. Of course, all the football in the world as Louisville tries to finish off this upset against Miami. Big play there by Miller Moss. 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter in that game. So hopefully the Cardinals can finish off a massive upset. I almost wonder if we should just stream the rest of this game.
Probably our next podcast. We're gonna talk about it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we could. Because I know I watched. I know there's SEC basketball media days this week, and I watched both Barnes and Kim Caldwell press conferences, and obviously they both sound very confident about their teams and what they have done this year. So as the clock keeps on ticking down in the Louisville game, we are down to 5.5 minutes. Miami still has all 3 timeouts in that game. So they keep on going. Now you got to wonder when Mario Cristobal is going to use his timeouts here.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely great timing, and because I have other things to do, and but yeah, definitely all we're gonna recap from SEC Media Days and college football and baseball next week.
100%. So for Gus Tomazelli, I am Nick Hill. Thank you so much for watching episode 203 of the Two Country to America's podcast, the only American and Brazilian sports podcast. Have a great night.